Madam Secretary, are we ready?
Yes, we are, Mr. Chairman.
Then please begin. I
Thank
welcome
you.
you all, first of all, to the City Planning Review Session. And now, Madam Secretary, please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, August 17th, 2015. This is the City Planning Commission Review Session, and a quorum is present. Commissioners, item number 1 is laid over, so we will begin today's session with item number 2. It's a proposed zoning text amendment and City Planning Commission certification to modify the boundaries of designated open space in the Special South Richmond Development District and for a zoning lot subdivision to facilitate development of residential units. I'd like to introduce Alina Farishta. She is our project planner for this project. She's making her first presentation today before the City Planning Commission. She'll introduce the project and provide a historical context for the designated open space. And Nicole Campo, who's the former Deputy Director of Land Use Review and current Deputy Director of Staten Island Office, will also be presenting today. She'll help us understand the project area context as it relates to designated open space and street network for this proposal. So let's start.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So this is a private application for a zoning text amendment pursuant to Zoning Resolution Section 10706 to modify the map of District Plan Appendix A of Article 10, Chapter 7 of the Zoning Resolution, to modify the boundaries of a portion of designated open space, or DOS, within the Special South Richmond Development District, which is located in the Great Hills neighborhood over here, in Community Board 3 of Staten Island. Also, this application requests from the Commission a certification of future subdivision from one zoning lot into 3 new zoning lots in order to facilitate the development of 3 two-family homes in the R3X zoning district at 529 Durant Avenue. The surrounding area includes an R3X zoning district. To the east of the site is the R3A and R31 zoning districts, and an R12 district is located to the west of the site. And the surrounding area is almost completely improved with 1 and 2 family detached semi-detached residences, typically 2 stories in height. And now, before walking you through the rest of the proposal and the actions here today, I would like to briefly provide you with a background on South Richmond's designated open space network. The Special South Richmond Development District was adopted in 1975, which was prompted by rapid development in the southern section of Staten Island. Included with this adoption of the special zoning district was the creation of the DOS zoning classification. As defined by the zoning resolution, designated open space is a portion of South Richmond's open space network located on a zoning lot as shown on the district plan, and it is intended to be preserved in its natural state in accordance with the provisions of the Special South Richmond Development District. No accessory off-street parking facilities are permitted in DOS, and no building or other structures should be erected in this DOS. And it also allows for active recreational facilities to be located within the DOS, but only by certification by the City Planning Commission. DOS was mapped over parcels of land to help create and protect a system of open space that included many of South Richmond's streams, ponds, wetlands, shorelines, and woods. And it was designed to create an interconnected public open space system linking parkland and important open spaces. And since 1975, many of these parcels mapped as DOS have been acquired by the Parks Department and the Department of Environmental Protection, helping to form a network of city parks and the Staten Island Blue Belt system. And it has also been subject of the state wetlands mapping. As you may recall, you were all briefed on the Sheldon Avenue Blue Belt proposal a few months ago, which introduced this overall Staten Island Blue Belt system and designated open space. And this parcel of DOS is subject to this application, and as you can see, it's pretty much isolated from the rest of the designated open space network. And now Nicole Campo will walk you through the history of the project area, specifically with respect to the street network and the DOS. Thank you.
In our new building, boards will not fall.
What happens when you leave the land use division, Nicole?
I caught it, though. So the applicant's property, block 5120, lot 62, which is the development site, and I'll take this with me. So the red outline here on this aerial consists of approximately 17,000 square feet of vacant land and 120 feet of frontage on Durant Avenue and, according to surveys, an extension of Ocean Road as an unbuilt record street. And I'm here because some of the street network history and designated open space history here is a little complicated. So approximately 46 feet of the frontage of this zoning lot is on Durant Avenue, and that portion of Durant Avenue has a Corporation Council opinion dated from 1995 for, like I said, 46 feet of that frontage. For those of you unfamiliar with the Corporation Council opinion, it is an opinion given by the law department that recognizes that a street, so to speak, has been open and in use for 10 years or more, and receiving city services or is eligible to receive city services. So even though it's not on the final map, city map, the city can pave the road, bring sanitation services to the road, et cetera. What the other, I guess 74 feet of frontage is along a record portion of Ocean Road, which has never been built and is not a final map either. So this application has actually been before the Board of Standards and Appeals for a waiver of General City Law 36, which states that a zoning lot must have frontage on a final map street, and that GCL 36 has been waived with respect to this application, which allows, the facilitation of the 3 zoning lots that's also part of this application. Across the entirety of this record street of Ocean Road and Durant Avenue is mapped this approximately 25,000 portion of designated open space. The area proposed to be removed, which Alina will get into later, is approximately half of that, 13,000 square feet of designated open space. Within the designated open space, which does not permit any buildings, structures, topo modification, it's supposed to remain in its natural state. Within it, which may be confusing, are 2 homes. The DOS was adopted as part of South Richmond in 1975. These homes began construction prior to that adoption, but received C of Os in 1976, so they were actually grandfathered. So that's why you see that here. And it's unclear as to how this paved portion occurred. Literally around the DOS have occurred 2 private streets. So this is King James Court over here, which was built in the 80s to facilitate these homes. And then this is an offshoot of Durant Avenue, which was built in roughly the year 2000, and this received a CPC certification of subdivision of zoning lots here. So this piece of Durant Avenue is completely on top of any of the frontage of this zoning lot. And in order to facilitate the paving of the road to gain vehicular access, as well as driveways and development on this site, this portion is being proposed to be demapped by the applicant today. Let me just make sure I've told you everything. And then I will turn it over to Alina to talk about the applicant's specific proposal here.
So the applicant wishes to remove approximately 13,362 square feet of the DOS, of which about 2,500 square feet is within the development site, and 10,921 square feet of the DOS is located in the bed of Durant Avenue and Ocean Road. So the removal of this portion of DOS would facilitate permitted paving and vehicular access to this site. The proposed text change would amend Article 10, Chapter 7 by modifying these boundaries of DOS by removing the 60-foot wide, 13,362 square foot portion of the overall parcel of DOS, which is 25,577 square feet. The remaining portion of DOS, which is to remain, is 12,215 square feet, located on Durant Avenue from the westerly edge of the development site to Highland Road. So from this portion up to Highland Road, the DOS will remain. And it's not proposed to be removed as part of this application, as the applicant only wishes to remove as much DOS which is necessary in order to facilitate access to the proposed development. In addition, the Department of Transportation has confirmed that they would not open the remainder of the Ocean Road street bed at this time. The Commission should also note that the Department of City Planning is undertaking a comprehensive study of the parcels of designated open space throughout South Richmond, and this will be included in a proposed text amendment modification of certain parcels of DOS that are located across rights-of-way if they do not retain a high significance of ecological value and or are still located across grandfathered residential developments. So this analysis and proposal is still underway and will hopefully be brought before you as part of a text amendment application in 2016. As mentioned earlier, this application also requests certification of a future zoning lot subdivision pursuant to Zoning Resolution Section 10706 of the existing zoning lot 62 into 3 new zoning lots. Tentative tax lots 62, 64, and 66. And each of these zoning lots are proposed to be developed with a 2-story detached 2-family home. Each of these proposed zoning lots vary between 4,706 square feet and 6,386 square feet of lot area, and this exceeds the minimum lot area requirement of the R3X zoning district in South Richmond. Furthermore, as Nicole mentioned, that a waiver of GCL 36 was granted by the BSA in February 2014 to permit development fronting a portion of Durant Avenue that is not final mapped. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Questions? I'm surprised. We'll start with Ms. Besser.
Thank you. Alina, this will be referred out to the community board for 60 days?
Correct.
Okay, and also, has the fire department seen and signed off on this?
Yeah, so as part of the BSA approval for GCL 36, the fire department had signed off on this.
Thank you.
Ms. Deluz.
Hi, Lena, welcome. Just a quick question, if you can confirm for me that for an area that is de-designated open space, that there's no need to replace that open space anywhere else?
So part of the zoning resolution, so there are authorizations and special permits. If the applicant was seeking those authorizations or special permits, they would require some sort of DOS land swap, sort of to say. But this text amendment does not require to replace designated open space if removed.
So We had explored with the applicant whether or not that would be appropriate for this type of application. Given the size of the property, and when you consider front yards, rear yards, and the subdivision, the path forward to do a land swap was not considered at this time. So in this case, this was just a removal of DOS, but not a direct swapping of land, so to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
So just to clarify, so what's the criteria of when that applies and when it doesn't, just so I understand?
It's unclear in the zoning resolution. In certain cases in the past, when there have been larger areas involved, it has been used to maybe move. There was an application for Woodrow Plaza several years back, and a corner piece of the property received designated open space designation so that there would sort of be a green corner along the shopping center. Designated open space was removed from one part of that site and placed there. On smaller sites, it's a little more difficult to facilitate.
So on the study that's supposed to come out in 2016, is that one of the things that will be shared about any?
In certain cases, yes. One of the items I think I maybe neglected to mention is that in the text maps of DOS, which I know it's small, but this is an example of here, in many cases, the designated open space does not have very clear dimensions, which we believe has resulted in kind of erroneous conflicts between existing buildings and designated open space, but you can clearly see where the intention was, where the DOS was intended to be placed. So in those senses, there would be a swap. And a lot of these areas are near blue belts and parklands, and the swap is more easy to facilitate on those kinds of properties.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Levin, then Ms. Ortiz.
Not so much a question, but a request. This map on the left is really helpful, but it wasn't in our package, so when it comes back, post-referral, it'd be helpful if you could include that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you probably have a sketch map in your package, but it's not in color and with the aerial. Yeah.
Right. Ms. Ortiz.
Just clarification to see if I understand this correctly. So Durant Avenue will be extended to allow for entrance. I'm just, because from the plans, it looks like we're going to have side-by-side streets. How will the street network?
It's an unfortunate result of previous private streets being created to bypass the designated open space. So in this case, it's almost going to be like a Y, so to speak, where Durant Avenue will be extended visually, but it's already there. It just will be opened to reach access to these sites. And as Alina mentioned, the fire department has looked this over to see if they have adequate turnaround space, and so that's part of it. But there will, at this point, remain an area of unimproved land kind of acting as an island in the middle.
So, I mean, the combined width of these streets side by side.
They won't be fully connected. I think
There's going to be a small strip.
there'll
of
be like an
sun
island in between the two.
with any landscaping or completely unimproved?
The homeowners informally have taken it upon themselves to maintain this property. And while the designated open space network was very successful in many ways, as Alina mentioned, where it was adopted as part of the Blue Belt system, the park system, there are these small segments that have remained that never found a mechanism by which to maintain them. And so just the surrounding homeowners maintain them.
Okay, and because it seems that, when we were told about why some of these streets or these right-of-ways were mapped as DOS, it was in an effort to restrict insensitive widening and building of streets to full width. It seems like
We believe that may have been the intent here. I've been waiting for Fred to arrive, and unfortunately, he's stuck on the train. But we actually learned within the past week that Mr. Cerullo grew up in this house. And through oral history,
You may be boycotting this.
we learned that where these homes are located, there had been a pond that was filled in before there were laws that said you cannot do that. So we actually now believe, and we did not have time to change the briefing package, that this was not one of the proposals to remove to prevent a street widening, but actually was the remaining parcel left over from what used to be a pond, but is no longer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Nicole or Vina? If not, this will be referred out for 60 days, and I'm sure that there will be other questions when this returns after you've all had an opportunity to think about it a little bit. Thank you, Alina, and talk to Fred if he should arrive. Thank you, Alina and Nicole.
Let's now go to item number 3, page 53, proposed modification of a previously approved special permit and restrictive declaration to modify the use restriction on the 3rd and 4th floor of an existing building on a zoning lot at the edge of the Gowanus Canal in Brooklyn. We're on item number 3. Our project planner is Connie Chan. And page 53, a Brooklyn non-ULURP referral project.
Good afternoon. The applicant, Hamilton Plaza Associates, seeks modification of a previously approved special permit and restrictive declaration to remove the proposed development site from the conditions of the restrictive declaration. The applicant is also seeking a chairman certification for waterfront certification that no visual corridor or waterfront public access area is required. These actions would facilitate a change of use and an enlargement of the 3rd floor of an existing building in the Gowanus neighborhood of Brooklyn in Community District Number 6. The proposed development site is located on a waterfront block bounded by the Gowanus Canal, Hamilton Place, located here, and the Gowanus Expressway. Here. So this is a more zoomed-in map, and just to give a little bit of context, so you can see a little bit better what we're talking about. This is the proposed development site. This is the Gowanus Canal. You've got Red Hook on this side of the Gowanus Expressway. We have Carroll Gardens over here. The Park Slope is located, this is Park 4th Avenue, so Park Slope is here, and Gowanus is located right here. The proposed development site has a total area of 221,946 square feet. The site is located in an M12 zoning district that is primarily occupied with retail uses. The area to the east of the proposed development site is zoned M21 and is comprised of a mix of industrial, commercial, and residential uses, as well as parking facilities. There's a large commercial use, which is a Lowe's Home Improvement, located directly east of the proposed development site in this M21 district. An M31 district is located across the Gowanus Canal to the west and south of the Gowanus Expressway, or Hamilton Avenue. This district contains a mix of heavy industrial, commercial, and transportation and utility uses. The subway lines that serve the proposed development site include the F and G lines with the nearest station at Smith and 9th Street, as well as the R line with the closest station at 4th Avenue and 9th Street. The area is also served by the B37 bus. A number of prior actions have taken place on this development site, including the following. In 1977, the area was rezoned from an M21 to an M12 district at the time that a special permit was approved to allow a grocery store in excess of 10,000 square feet to occupy the ground floor of the former Goya food processing and warehouse building located on the northern portion of this site. In conjunction with the special permit, a restrictive declaration was recorded that imposed a restriction that any uses on the 3rd and 4th floors of the building, other than office and warehouse uses, would be permitted only by written authorization of the city upon recommendation by the City Planning Commission and final approval of the Board of Estimate after consultation with the community, including local merchants. This restriction was imposed to limit the amount of retail space on the site, given community concerns regarding the potential impacts on the local economy, especially along the nearby Fifth Avenue commercial corridor in Park Slope, which at the time, which was in the mid-1970s, was suffering from a high retail vacancy rate. The restrictive declaration was also binding against other properties in the vicinity of the proposed development site. In 1979, a new special permit replaced the expired 1977 special permit to allow a 45,000 square foot supermarket and 23,000 square feet of accompanying retail space to be located in the former industrial building and adjoining properties. There were no changes to the restrictive declaration in connection with the 1979 special permit. In 1981, a minor modification to the special permit and restrictive declaration updated the site plan and reduced the parking requirement. The proposed development site is improved with a building that contains 111,091 square feet of commercial and manufacturing uses. A portion of the building is 1 story and a portion of the building is 4 stories. So here's a photo facing the building. As you can see, this portion is 1 story, which contains a grocery store, and there's this portion right here that is 4 stories. So again, here's the 1 story portion and the 4 story portion. The first floor contains a Pathmark grocery store that occupies 42,581 square feet of floor area and a 1,909 square foot mezzanine. The first floor also contains 24,955 square feet of additional space occupied by 3 other retail tenants. The second floor consists of 13,994 square feet of floor area and is used for medical offices. The third floor consists of 13,994 square feet of floor area and was formerly used as a warehouse, but is currently vacant. The fourth floor consists of 13,658 square feet of floor area and is currently used as a warehouse. The remainder of the proposed development site consists of accessory parking. The proposed actions would facilitate the establishment of a physical culture establishment on the 3rd floor and an enlargement of the 3rd floor by adding a 2,364 square foot mezzanine in the existing 4-story building. The proposed tenant, which is Retro Fitness, would occupy the entire existing 3rd floor, plus the proposed additional mezzanine space. The physical culture establishment requires a special permit from the Board of Standard and Appeals, which was approved on January 13th in 2015. Showing the area of the 3rd floor, where the physical culture establishment would be located, as well as an additional mezzanine space that's proposed that would also be occupied by the physical culture establishment. The modification of the special permit and the restrictive declaration would cancel the condition of the restrictive declaration, which limits as-of-right uses on the 3rd and 4th floors of the 4-story building to office or warehouse uses. In order to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant is requesting modification of the previously granted special permit and restrictive declaration to remove the proposed development site from the conditions of the restrictive declaration. The applicant is also seeking a chairman certification for waterfront certification that no visual corridor or waterfront public access area is required. These actions, in conjunction with the BSA special permit, will facilitate the proposed change of use of the 3rd floor to a physical culture establishment and the enlargement of the 3rd floor by adding a 2,364 square foot mezzanine within the existing building.
Thank you, Connie. Questions? Mr. Cantor.
What is the occupancy on the 2nd floor underneath the facility?
The 2nd floor has medical offices.
I would assume that all parties are aware that physical therapy floors have a tendency to be bounced upon.
I believe that all of the tenants are aware. As I mentioned, a BSA special permit was granted in January, but we can certainly double check that all of the tenants have been notified of that.
Ms. Levin.
I have a question, not so much for you, Connie, but a question in my mind that I'll be interested to hear back from the community board about. And that has to do with the notion of treating this as a minor modification to undo a provision in the restrictive declaration that was, that apparently a central provision of the approval of this restrictive declaration back in 1975. So can it really be a minor modification, and why shouldn't, I mean, I've no issue with, this change in use. And I also recognize that 1975 is a whole long time ago, and maybe the sensitivities about retail use in surrounding areas that were so important then have diminished in importance. But still, as a matter of process, we have something on the books that says that if you want to change this, you need to go talk to the community board and the local council member and the now city council, and can we really undo that? Is it appropriate for us to undo that as a minor modification? Because the effect would be for the community that they would be giving up a chance to look at potential retail use on the 4th floor. Maybe they're fine with that, maybe they're not, but I think it's something for us to understand before we take action.
Just so I understand, is your concern about the 4th floor or the 3rd floor in terms of
Well, they're
minor
going to get a chance to
modification?
look at the 3rd floor because
Right.
this is being referred to them.
Right, so your concern is with the as-of-right nature of the 4th floor, should this be
Correct.
approved?
And
question.
the whole process notion of our being able to undo as a minor modification a provision that was so carefully negotiated. Is this really a minor modification when you look at where it sits in the restrictive
I
declaration?
mean, in terms of the 4th floor, not so much the 3rd floor.
No,
Because the
this
3rd
is-
floor,
Yes.
there is a
Yes,
referral
yes.
out in terms of both, the restrictive deck
Yes.
requires a consultation, right?
So just to clarify, do you want to clarify, Allison?
Sure. To clarify, this is going to the city council, so it's almost, it is almost getting the treatment of a full modification, a full
Oh,
major
this does go to
mod.
the
This
council
will go-
after the
This will
community
go to
board?
the city
Okay,
council.
Well, all right, so then I feel better.
Any other questions for Connie? Ms. Deluz? Or for Allison?
Maybe not so much a question, but, and I'm going to have to look this up, but, obviously your report referred to the history at the time that it was developed, and things have certainly changed, and it'll be interesting to see what Community Board 6 comes back with. But, at the time, Fifth Avenue merchants were definitely being organized. The Fifth Avenue Committee, which I now have the privilege of running, was formed a year later. So it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is through the process.
Yeah, and just as some kind of context in terms of the consultation with the local community, including local merchants, a letter was sent out in September of last year to the Park Slope Fifth Avenue BID, the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, the CPC Community Board 6, the council member's office as well.
I would just recommend maybe adding 2 other organizations to that, the Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation and Gowanus Alliance. So some of the constituencies have, all the ones you mentioned are good, but I think there's 2 other constituencies that would be helpful to consult with on this, if that hasn't already been done.
Just to clarify, at the time of the BSA approval, Community Board did approve this particular use, and that the action before the commission is broadly based in the sense that the 3rd and the 4th floor use restrictions are being requested to be modified.
Oh, that's good. Any other questions? Okay, so this will be referred out to the community board for 45 days, and then come back. Thank you, Connie.
Let's now move to item number 4, page 131. It's a proposed authorization to facilitate a fresh food store in the Prospect Lefferts Gardens community of Brooklyn. And our project planner is Samadi Naik. We're on item number 4, page 131, fresh food store proposed for 31 Lincoln Road in Brooklyn.
Good afternoon. This is an application for authorization pursuant to Section 6322 to allow an increase in the maximum height to facilitate the establishment of a fresh food store in the Prospect Lefferts Gardens in Brooklyn's Community District 9. There is also a related chairperson certification pursuant to 6330 to certify that there is a fresh food store associated with this action. The requested certification and authorization will facilitate the establishment of an approximately 6,157 square feet of fresh food store on the ground floor of the proposed 9-story mixed-use building, which will include residential, commercial, and community facility uses. The residential comprises 90 dwelling units, out of which 18 are affordable housing. The project area, the site is located on Lincoln Road between Flatbush Avenue and Ocean Avenue. It is zoned R71 and has a C23 overlay. R71 allows for residential and community facility uses, and the C23, which is a local, allows for local retail uses. In terms of the context, considering this is an authorization for additional height, there is a building directly north of the subject site, which is 80 feet in height, and the rest of the apartment buildings, which you can see in this ochre-colored areas, they're all 6-story multifamily elevator buildings, which have a height of approximately 75 feet. So in terms of the height increase, 80 feet is the maximum height which is allowed pursuant to the quality housing option of R71. And the proposed building is 89 feet and 9 inches. So there's an increase in approximately 10 feet if the authorization is granted. So the surrounding context, again, this is to facilitate the fresh food store. In terms of the grocery stores and markets in the area, they're just at the corner of the site along Flatbush and Lincoln Road. There's a new upscale deli which has been developed recently. In terms of major food stores, there are 2 within a half-mile radius of the subject site, and there's also the Key Food, which is a mile away on Nostrand Avenue. The site is very well served. There's the BQS subways, which has stopped. The subway entrance is right along Lincoln Road, which is adjacent to the subject site. Prospect Park is a block away to the west, and Prospect Lefferts Gardens Historic District is a block away to the east. So the project area, the lot area is approximately 15,800 square feet, and the site is under construction with a DOB approved as of right 8-story building. The proposal, which includes the 9-story building, has a total of 76,941 square feet with a total FAR of 4.87. And the proposed fresh food store will have 14 feet 9 inches floor to ceiling height. The requirement is for 14 feet and will be operated by Fresh Fanatic, which is an organic store operator who has a store currently in Clinton Hill. And it will include 2,033 square feet dedicated to perishable goods, 526 square feet for fresh produce, and approximately 3,000 square feet for the sale of general food products intended for home preparation. And the areas are complying as per fresh requirements. So the residential floor area includes 6,057 square feet of fresh bonus floor area. And in order to accommodate this bonus floor area, the applicant is seeking additional height. The bonus floor area will be accommodated on the 9th floor. So the proposed, the approval will lead to an increase of the building height from approximately 79 feet 8 inches to 89 feet 8 inches. So as for the actions necessary to facilitate the project, in order to facilitate the development of the proposed project, the applicant is seeking an authorization pursuant to 6322 to allow for maximum building height to be increased. And if granted, the proposed building would be increased, would have a height increase of approximately 10 feet. Pursuant to 6322, the commission may authorize an increase in maximum allowable building height, provided the commission finds that the increase is necessary to accommodate the fresh food store. will not adversely affect the scale and character of the adjacent buildings, and will not unduly obstruct light and air to adjacent buildings. Seeker does not require a shadow analysis to be performed. There's an increase in just 1 story, and that is not obstructing the windows or creating additional shadows for the adjacent area.
Thank you, Sanmati. Questions? Ms. Deleuze.
Hi, 2 questions. One is, this is a community that's very sensitive to height, so I'm just wondering what conversations may have come already and any reactions. And the other is, where would the loading and unloading happen for trucks? Because Lincoln is very narrow and quite busy.
The access to the, my understanding is it's going to be from this, but I will double check. I'm not 100% sure. And the access to the parking garage is from a site which is also owned by the owner, and so it's going to be along Flatbush Avenue. And in response to the first question, the community board has been supportive, and there, as you are aware, there's a lot of opposition in this area to higher story building. So those groups are also have vocally appreciated the developer who reached out to them and is developing pursuant to quality housing buildings. So the response is good so far. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mrs. Ortiz.
Hi, you know, you mentioned the loading and unloading from here. It looks like there's a spot for loading and unloading. Or is that within the boundaries of the building? Am I misreading that?
So this is the entrance. Actually, they are, because although there's a single owner for this entire area, because the fresh food store, they are only providing 14 feet.
Oh,
of this
that
area.
is a lobby then.
Yeah, so this is as per DOB requirements.
I can't see.
Because these are 2 separate stores. They are required to have a separate entrance. So this is just, they are complying with the DOB requirements, but my understanding is this is going to be the entrance for both fresh and the commercial.
Okay, so then I would say I have the same question as Commissioner Deleuze in terms of loading and unloading. And with respect to the other commercial space, could you sort of orient us, and is there a user in mind for that?
The same owner is, it's going to be one grocery store, and the front part is going to be fresh. So this whole is going to be a grocery store. This entire area.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's all one store.
Yes.
Okay, that's very
It's the same
helpful.
owner. It's just that the one which is shaded is the fresh food store, and that has 14 feet height limit. The rest there's a set, like a lower ceiling height for the rest of the area, and that's why they are getting bonus only for this portion which has a higher ceiling height.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sanmati. This also will be referred out for 45 days.
Let's now move to item number 5, page 149. So Brooklyn non-ULURP action with respect to a proposed administrative review pursuant to the restrictive deck by the City Planning Commission to facilitate a 1-story commercial building near Brooklyn Bridge Park. Our project planner is Alex Summers, and we're on item number 5, page 149.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This is an application by Fulton Ferry Enterprises requesting an administrative review by the City Planning Commission pursuant to a 1979 restrictive declaration recorded in connection with a modification of use special permit per 74-711. This action is to facilitate a new 1-story commercial development in the Fulton Ferry neighborhood of Community District 2, Brooklyn. So the proposed development site is located in the Fulton Ferry Historic District, which was designated in 1977. It's located, walk over here and walk you through this. So the site is located here along Old Fulton Street. Here is the Brooklyn Bridge. It's elevated at this point. And then the BQE is actually going through this way. This is the 8 to 13-story watchtower, printing, and office complex. And then this whole area is Brooklyn Bridge Park. And then, yeah, that's basically the orientation there. So the proposed development site is located in an M12 district, or excuse me, M21 district. It's a medium-intensity manufacturing district, which has an FAR of 2.0, with maximum heights governed by a sky exposure plane after a 60-foot maximum street wall height. It also has a relatively high parking requirement. Within the mapped M21 district, there are a mix of uses and building typologies. As I mentioned, the Watchtower complex there, smaller 4 to 5 story loft conversions, and there's some auto-oriented uses in the area as well. Across Old Fulton Street to the north, there's a series of 2 to 4 story converted loft buildings and historic mixed-use row houses with active ground floor retail and restaurants such as Grimaldi's and Giuliana's, and then there's offices and residential above. Fulton Ferry Landing itself includes an East River Ferry Landing, barge music, the River Cafe, and numerous takeout eating establishments. This area is known to attract over 100,000 visitors on any given summer weekend. The High Street AC subway station is approximately 4 to 5 blocks to the southeast, and the York Street F station is approximately 9 to 10 blocks to the east. The B25 bus route also runs along Old Fulton Street, and the East River Ferry Landing is 1 block to the west. So the proposed development site itself consists of 1 zoning lot. It's made up of 2 separate tax lots. Lot 4 is to the south, and it's actually in the middle of the block there. Consists of an existing 3-story loft building. It was actually converted in 1979 to 7 dwelling units. And then Lot 5 is the proposed development site, which is approximately 3,000 square feet and is currently used as a surface parking lot surrounded by a masonry wall. The applicant is proposing to develop Lot 5 with a new 1-story, approximately 3,000 square foot commercial development consisting of a restaurant, bar, retail, and event space all combined. It's all considered use group 6. Total proposed square footage for the zoning lot, including the existing 7,500 square foot loft building on Lot 4, equals approximately 1.66 FAR, which is below the 2.0 maximum FAR for the district. The height of the proposed building, which rises from 10 feet 4 inches in the rear of the lot to 16 feet along Old Fulton Street, is controlled by a private easement. So it's hard to see a little bit here. This is the section. And so this is the rear of the lot. Here's the 3-story loft building that was converted in 1977. Here's Old Fulton Street. And rising this direction is a private easement across the property. So again, 10 feet 4 inches in the rear of the lot and approximately 16 feet in the front of the lot. The proposed development has waived their required accessory parking per ZR section 44-23, as it would be below the required 15 spaces. So in order to facilitate this proposed development, the applicants are requesting an administrative review by the commission that the proposed project is allowed as of right under zoning. In 1979, the City Planning Commission approved a 74-711 modification of use special permit for the 3-story loft building on Lot 4, of which at that time was part of the same zoning lot with Lot 5. A restrictive declaration was also assigned to the property, which mostly detailed the conversion and maintenance programming of the loft structure. However, the declaration also required that the City Planning Commission conduct an administrative review of any future development on Lot 5. Because there is nothing in the declaration or public record that we could find indicating a framework for this review, it's considered a ministerial action to confirm that the proposed project is allowed as of right under zoning. And just so you're aware, on January 29th of this year, the Landmarks Preservation Commission issued a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed development. And then here's a rendering of what that proposed development would look like. Again, here's Old Fulton Street here. Oh. And so this is what the Landmarks Preservation Commission saw, and they received a certificate of appropriateness. Here's the 3-story loft building behind the development, Watchtower complex. Here, Old Fulton. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Alex. Any questions? Ms. Levin.
Well, I guess this is the 70s revival day here at City Planning. It's clearly a different era in terms of how we approach these things, but I have a question that really doesn't relate to the zoning at all, but it seems that this restaurant use is going to put out a prodigious amount of kitchen exhaust. And the building to the south has a prodigious amount of windows. So what care has been taken to ensure that we're not creating a environmental unpleasantness for, and there are residential windows in the building to the east as well?
Sure.
Are
And
they being required to put in robust exhaust
so
systems?
the easement, part of the reason why the easement was placed on the property was to protect light and air to the windows on the lot line, or not on the lot line, but just
Nearby?
directly adjacent behind the lot line. As well, this is a planted open area as well. So that was part of the reason why there was this easement placed on there. All of the exhaust and mechanicals from what we've seen in the diagrams are going to be located closer to Old Fulton Street. And there was a type 2 conducted for this as part of the analysis, and we didn't find any.
Okay. Yeah, and that's probably not anything we can do, but as you can tell, we all have our own little pet issues, and since I live next to an exhaust that was very problematic until they invested $250,000 in scrubbing the air, it's really important that they build this right in the first place. There are ways you can do it so that you're not causing difficulties in the surroundings, and I hope they're being required to do that.
Ms. Ortiz? Any other questions? Okay, with Ms. Levin's admonition to the buildings department and to the developer, by a show of hands, can we send an approval letter to the buildings department? Thank you.
Alex has the next presentation as well. We're now on item number 6, page 184. It's proposed acquisition and site selection of property to facilitate a lease renewal of court use at 141 Livingston Street and a concurrent related site selection action for that use to be relocated to 210 Gerolman Street. We're on item number 6, page 184, Brooklyn pre-hearing for the Brooklyn Courts Relocation proposal back from Community Board and Borough President review. So Alex is our presenter once again. Item number 6, page 184.
So speaking of the 70s. So the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services are requesting an acquisition for continued use of approximately 210,000 square feet of court uses at 141 Livingston Street and a concurrent site selection for the court's future relocation to the Brooklyn Municipal Building located at 210 Gerolman Street. And both sites are located within downtown Brooklyn Community District 2. Just for reference, here's 141 Livingston Street here. This is Livingston Street, and this is J Street right here. And then this is 210 Gerolman. This is the municipal building located across the street from Brooklyn Borough Hall here. So 141 Livingston Street is an approximately 210,000 square foot, 15-story private office building constructed in 1959 and situated on the corner of Smith and Livingston Streets, located within the special downtown Brooklyn district. MOCJ and DCAS are requesting an acquisition for continued use and a site selection for 3 court functions. This is the civil court, the housing court, and small claims court. Since 2005, the courts have been operating under a licensing agreement, which expired this year, and the applicants are now proposing an acquisition for continued use to facilitate the execution of a new 10-year lease with an option to cancel the lease after 5 years. The applicants have suggested that this lease structure would allow for the courts to begin relocation without interrupting service provision. Concurrently, the applicants are also requesting a site selection for 200,000 square feet of these same court uses to be relocated to the Brooklyn Municipal Building, located at 210 Gerolman Street. The applicants have stated that this is to effectuate a seamless relocation while maintaining all court functions before, during, and after the move. So Community Board 2 held a public hearing on May 20th and voted on June 10th to recommend approval with conditions, 30 approved, 2 disapproved, and 2 abstained. The Community Board's condition that DCAS expedite the relocation of the courts and that DCAS update Community Board 2 periodically on the status of the project. The Brooklyn Borough President held a public hearing on June 1st and recommended approval with conditions. So I'm going to go through the list of conditions here. The Brooklyn Borough President recommended that the applicants create a task force and advisory board to oversee the lease renewal and completion of necessary improvements prior to the city council's consideration, and that this task force consist of tenant advocacy stakeholders, community board 2, elected officials, and appropriate city and state agencies. That MOCJ, in consultation with tenant advocacy stakeholders, review lobby operating hours, security, and waiting rooms in order to provide staggered arrivals and waiting times and allow for early arrivals to wait indoors. That the applicants update city council on the quick fixes and prior to execution of a new lease, that a demonstrated architectural and engineering assessment of systems and conditions has been expedited, that the lease renewal includes timing commitments related to building improvements and system upgrades, with lease payment reductions for the landlord missing deadlines, and that the lease renewal requires that the landlord to retain Brooklyn-based contractors, including those designated as MWBE and LBE establishments of not less than 20% participation, as well as coordinate the monitoring of such participation with an appropriate monitoring agency. And then for the site selection, the conditions include that DCAS provide quarterly reports to Community Board 2, the council members affected, the borough president, and the task force, updating them on the relocation, that the applicants expedite the move to ensure completion no later than 2018, that DCAS immediately retain space planning consultants to assess the vacating of 345 Adams Street, and architectural consultants to determine agency needs for the relocation of Department of Finance to 345 Adams Street, that DCAS identify office space for Department of Finance before or during City Council review, that the city expedite the bidding and contract award process so the Department of Finance relocation is awarded in advance, and that the construction and relocation allow for multiple shifts as near as 24/7 as practicable, that DCAS commits to having movers engaged to start within 1 week of space being ready for occupancy, and that the contract include multiple shifts and weekends, that the administration commit in writing that such terms would be implemented by the agencies prior to the city council waiving its right to call up the application or otherwise grant its approval. And then finally, that DCAS shall evaluate its requirement contracts in terms of its effectiveness to retain MWBE and LBE establishments and make recommendations to the borough president and the city council of how the procedure should be improved to best retain Brooklyn-based contractors. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. As you can see, there's a degree of urgency in getting this done. Questions? Ms. Deleuze.
Not so much question, but background, and you can certainly help fill in. So, I mean, because this involves Brooklyn Housing Court, and Brooklyn Housing Court is, the way it's structured now, woefully inadequate in terms of providing for the needs of tenants. That's part of the background about why so many different requirements. There's been a campaign to reform Brooklyn Housing Court that is almost a decade old, I think, at this point. So I think that's part of the background about why so many requirements. So I'm assuming on Wednesday we'll hear more about that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cantor.
Thank you. Will the renovations of the other building, when they move over, will those renovations be put out to public bid?
That I don't know, and I'll make sure that that's responded to at the
Because
public
that
hearing.
seems to be in contradiction of haste.
You're talking about the ones to the municipal building, is that what
Yeah.
you're referring to? Okay.
Well, I think that there's a minimum, basically, of 5 years for this to transition to occur, and I think the desire, presumably, is that it be, recognizing it can't be less than 5 years, that it shouldn't be more than 5 years. And so, based on what we all know about the city's procurement process, this should be doable in 5 years. We'll hear more on Wednesday. Any other questions for Alex? Thank you, Alex. Public hearing on Wednesday.
Let's now move to item number 7, page 225. It's proposed UDAAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property to facilitate 55 units of affordable housing in Community District 1, Brooklyn. We're on item number 7. It's a Brooklyn pre-hearing application, page 225, and our project planner is Syed Ahmed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This project is back from Community Board and Borough President's Office. I will briefly describe the project and then go through the recommendations. The Department of Housing Preservation and Development requests approval of a UDAAP designation, project approval, and disposition of a city-owned site located at 337 Barry Street. The site is L-shaped. It is about 16,000 square feet, and it fronts on two streets, Barry Street and South 5th Street. The project site and adjacent blocks to the east and west are zoned M12 and R6. It is a mixed-use district which permits maximum residential FARs of 3.6 with inclusionary housing bonus. The surrounding area contains a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial uses. Right across the street, South 5th Street, is Williamsburg Bridge, right here. And East River Waterfront is 3 blocks west of the site. The area is well served by 3 bus routes and J, M, and Z subway lines. HPD proposes a new 11-story mixed-use building with 55 rental units of for low-income families. The ground floor of the residential building would be occupied by 4,000 square feet of commercial space fronting on 5th Street and an adjacent small lot, which is right here, would be occupied by a 1-story structure for a community facility space. The rental apartments would be a mix of studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. All of the units would be affordable to families earning up to 60% of AMI. The development would take advantage of the inclusionary housing program and would provide 19 units of permanently affordable housing. Additionally, 11 units would be reserved for homeless families and individuals earning up to 20% of AMI. The development would provide 14 parking spaces in the rear of the building, and the developer will also plant 7 street trees. Community Board 1 held a public hearing on June 9, approved this application with 2 conditions by a vote of 35 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. 2 conditions are, 1, that the developer ascertain standard parking fees and community space rents in the area and charge accordingly. If the developer's fees and rents are higher, then HPD would weigh in. Second condition is that HPD give 5% of the units set aside for disabled tenants to Community Board 1 on top of their 50% Community Board preference. Borough President's Office submitted a recommendation on August 10. They approved this project with 4 conditions. And the conditions are that the Community Board's 50% preference would include the residents of Community Board 1 who were displaced by 2005 Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning. Second, that all of the housing units in the development would be permanently affordable. Third, that the street trees which cannot be planted in front of the development would be planted at locations selected with the help of Community Board 1 and the Department of Parks and Recreation. Fourth, and the last recommendation, that the project developer retain Brooklyn-based contractors and subcontractors to meet or exceed the standards per local law 1, which requires not less than 20% participation of Brooklyn-based businesses. Apart from these 4 recommendations, the Borough President's Office also suggested that HPD looked into Williamsburg Bridge Plaza Bus Depot, 2 blocks west of the site, as a potential housing site. These were the recommendations.
Thank you, Syed. Questions? Hearing none, public hearing on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed. Now let's turn our attention to future votes and the post-hearing follow-ups. So this Wednesday, staff have prepared favorable resolutions for the following. We have 4490 Fieldston Road, which is a special natural area district certification. the zoning lot subdivision to facilitate single-family homes at 4490 Fieldston Road. We also have the Salanter Akiba Riverdale Academy Campus proposal, which is a modification of a previously approved authorization in the Special Natural Area District to facilitate a locker room and cafeteria in the cellar of a school building. We have the 1775 Grand Concourse office space, acquisition of office space for the Brooklyn office, the Bronx office, yes, of city planning. We have the FDNY Rescue 2 proposal, which is a site selection and special permit in Community District 16 in Brooklyn. We have a 10300 Foster Avenue proposal, which is proposed acquisition of property for use as an HRA warehouse. We have the Riverside West End Historic District Extension 2, the Corbin Building, and the Stonewall Inn. Staff have determined that there's no conflicts with the zoning resolution, projected public improvements or plans for the area. We have Jade Court, proposed certification for future subdivision to facilitate single-family homes in the Special South Richmond Development District of Staten Island. And we also have 90 Craig Avenue, which is proposed certification for future zoning lot subdivision to facilitate two-family homes, also in the Special South Richmond Development District. Moving on to September 19th.
Ninth.
I'm sorry,
Ninth.
September 9th. Thank you. We have the NYPD College Point tow pound facility. Commissioners, you received a memo from General Counsel addressing some of the concerns that were raised during the public hearing. The memo stated that the tow pound need not be enclosed and that its use is permitted to serve the general welfare of city residents. So we do have counsel present in case you have any questions.
Ms. Levin.
I don't really have a question, and I'm fully in favor of the site selection, but I have to say, I think it did raise a question in my mind as I was preparing for these, for this application about the purposes of the special district. And it's true that no one really imagined that a tow pound was what was going to be the best use here. I think we heard powerful testimony about the appropriateness of using this site after a long period of vacancy, and there are all kinds of good reasons why this does make sense, but the truth is it doesn't really fit the goals of the special district. So I think it's worth acknowledging. We don't want to tread lightly on that, and I think we need to acknowledge that there are goals and purposes, but they need to be weighed against the circumstances on the ground at the time and the amount of time that's gone by. And I think a little elaboration about why this is an appropriate use would make sense, because it would create a record that we did consider what the goals of the area are and what's right for this time.
I think that's appropriate, and the consideration and write-up of the report will reflect that. I mean, clearly that special district, College Point Special District, which I know well, is it was not a special district that was created particularly for city proprietary uses. Nevertheless, we know that there's, especially in a site that has been vacant for a while and has been marketed for a while, and given the fact that it is difficult frequently to find sites for proprietary uses, and that this one is compliant with zoning, it's kinds of policy decisions that have to be made. But I think all of those factors should be reflected in the report.
Will do. And also for September 9th, we have the Fordham Plaza major concession. We thought we had a good hearing. Any questions on that one? We also have the project manager here. Okay. We have the Fulton Street Business Improvement District expansion. Staff is preparing a favorable report. And last but not least, we have the 115 Williams Avenue proposal, which is for the UDAAP disposition to facilitate the expansion to an existing poultry distribution facility in Brooklyn. And we believe that you had a positive hearing, and questions were answered. Not a peep.
You couldn't resist.
Couldn't resist.
Saw that one coming.
That's the,
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Commissioner Cirillo, we missed you on the opening item here.
Yes, I'm sorry I wasn't here. I spent almost 55 minutes on the 4 train, getting here 2 stops. Not moving at all, but I am sorry. And if there are any questions that anybody has about this, that I can share some history on. I probably some history you don't want to share. I used this portion of what I didn't know was designated open space all these years as the entranceway to a path that brought us into the woods, that brought us around.
You didn't take any rocks
many,
from there.
Many adventures on this portion of Durant Avenue. So,
Swim in the pond?
what's that?
Did you swim in the pond?
No, we didn't swim in the pond. We did cross it when it was iced. It's probably
Right.
But it really, when I think back, it's a reflection of the beginnings of a neighborhood and the progress that takes place. And some of it happened in a very rational way over the years, and some of it didn't. But it's still a special neighborhood, and personally knowing the area, I understand sort of the challenge here, and this seems to be a rational way to deal with really the last piece of this area that could possibly be used for any development without seriously taking the rights away from the owner and not necessarily destroying anything that's really going on in that particular location. But it's just interesting what I learned about, without any knowledge growing up as a child, you have no idea what's happening. But a lot of this, of course, the South Richmond Special District goes back to '75. But a lot of the development in this area it predated '75. So, things got laid on top of other things without any, history or kind of what would you do if. But I'm sorry I wasn't here to hear the presentation, but it was fun to see this piece. And my family lived in that house up until 3 years ago. So we know the neighborhood well.
Right.
Sure.
So I'm sure in some mysterious way that none of us will ever understand, it was catalytic in a great career. So, okay, thank you all very much. We'll see you Wednesday.